right, hello everybody. It's Chris Call with PMG Prop Talk. Back in the room again with Mikey Trudel as usual, and Mikey's on the board as well too, so he's double dipping.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exciting. Today is a really special podcast because we have guests from all the way from New Zealand from the Wētā group. I said that right?
Wētā Workshop. Yeah.
Wētā Workshop. Thank you. I'm gonna do my least favorite thing, which is read off of a page. But so I'm going to say it's one of the largest prop manufacturers and fabricators and 3D modeling outfits in the world, known for creating props for many projects, including Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. Yes. They're also involved in creating props, costumes, special effects, and for various other movies. And today in the room representing is Danielle Prestidge. I said that right? Yes, Danielle.
Yeah, you got it.
See that? I'm working on it. And us, who is the head of business development for creative services for Wētā Workshop. And also we have Hansen. Is that correct?
Lance Hansen, yep.
Lance Hansen. Thank you. You're one of the art directors there. You've been there for 14 years at the Wētā Workshop, specializing in creating specialty costumes, armor, guns, swords, and robots. You do it all there, don't you? It's pretty exciting. Yeah, I just have to say that, I've been in the business for a pretty long time. I don't do a lot of manufacturing for what I do, but the name Wētā is synonymous with first class manufacturing around the world. I think it's very exciting, and we're really honored to have you in the room.
Yeah, especially, I just want to say also, they're all, in addition to all this, they're also big PMG sponsors. You guys are huge supporters of us at the PMG, including big award sponsors too. We're really heavily involved in supporting our first ever award show. So first of all, we have a lot of appreciation for you guys putting so much support in with us, but everybody wants to know more about you guys. So tell us about what Wētā Workshop is all about. And you guys are coming from us in the future, and we had to, this is what, 19 hours ahead of us?
19 hours ahead, right? Exactly.
So,
yeah, but we share a day, so we work that to our advantage. But,
yeah, we're wasted over here.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Yeah, I mean, we like that. We're well known around the world, but also at the same time, we're always wanting to meet new people, and kind of chatting to you guys is a big part of that, and also supporting the PMG awards and the PMG itself. We're very grateful to be kind of invited to do that. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great. So as Mikey was saying, first of all, indulge me. Is Wētā an acronym for something?
No. Well, Wētā is actually a New Zealand bug, which is kind of like an ugly creature in itself.
So huge though, they're like palm-sized,
Yeah.
like round, spiky creature things that you find in the bush.
Okay.
Yeah, which is why kind of our brand logo is a little bug. So
It's a little Wētā bug. Nice.
Have
you ever had to build a little Wētā bug?
Oh, we've built many.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for films, but yeah.
And so give us a little background. Where and when did Wētā start, and who started it? And
Yeah, well, Wētā Workshop was founded by our company owners, Sir Richard Taylor and Tanya Roger, alongside of the other Wētā group of companies with Sir Peter Jackson and Jamie Selkirk. But now we're 100% owned by Richard and Tanya, which is really nice. And we've been in business for around 30 plus years now. They started off, working in low budget creature features like Dead Alive, Meet the Feebles, onto Heavenly Creatures. Obviously, onto the Lord of the Rings projects, which was where we really kind of launched around the world. And then from there, we've just expanded and expanded, diversified our business as well, because being down in New Zealand and with the ups and downs of the film industry, is I'm sure you all are very aware.
Yes.
We feel those effects too. So we also have expanded our business into immersive experiences, tourism, animatronics and robotics, and also collectibles and so.
Right. I saw that you are making action figures. That's fun.
Yeah. Well, it started off kind of giving our sculptors work between projects as well, getting licenses for content, films that we've worked on, or other types of genre projects that really align with kind of our brand. So that's been a really cool expansion. Yeah, and as well as kind of the other artistic sides of our business.
Geographically, we're in Wellington, in New Zealand, the capital city.
Right.
We're out peninsula, just down the road from the studios. Park Road Post Production is just next door. So we're really well centered to service the local and overseas industry.
Do you have any other facilities anywhere else in the world? Are you looking to expand anywhere?
No, we service all around the world. So 90% of the projects that we do are actually international. Although we love working in New Zealand and on projects up the road at Stone Street Studios, our local shooting stages, and up in Auckland, most of the projects that we deliver to are actually international. So we might send crews with our product around the world and put them on set to help support it with the local teams, or we might just deliver product directly into the props masters or other HODs that we might be delivering to. So, yeah.
So we're flexible to work with however our clients and the designers and prop masters we work with need. And sometimes they come here for stints and are based locally, and at times we go and work remotely with them. And
right.
Yeah.
we make.
Yeah.
Our core. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Our core business has about 350 people as our average kind of employee staff.
Yeah.
But we
that's
do
good.
expand and contract.
Yes.
So, for instance, we were just working this last year. Lance was heavily involved. We're working on Tron Ares, and we brought in about 100 extra people, which we often do when we're working on large-scale delivery projects. But a lot of those people were specialist electricians for obvious reasons.
Nice. Just like on a one of the larger special effects movies, you would see the credits and they'd go on and on and on. So all those people.
Yeah.
And did you, for shows like Tron, did you guys? I know that shot in Vancouver. Did you guys actually go out to hand deliver that stuff, or is that one of the ones that they worked through a lot and you shipped them out to was it Dean Ellerson? I think did that. Right?
Yeah. So we were over there a lot early on. We were trying to work out actually how do you make lights that are flexible and work in suits and safe and can get wet. So right in the early camera tests, we were going out, working out actually how to achieve that effect before we even really started making costumes for that.
Sure. So I'm assuming that you create a team for each project, and those people are dedicated to that project. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a core team around each project. You get specialists. I mean, with Tron, we crossed over a lot of different disciplines. We had electronic specialists. We had our costume team. There was a core team kind of built around that. But with a job so large, it ends up being the entire workshop, kind of everyone chipping in to work to make that work.
Yeah, but on every project, we have dedicated project supervisors and production managers that are working remotely with our clients to keep them updated all the way through. And we also have a really slick media team here. So we're taking really high quality photographs and videos so that all of our updates all the way through are really high quality, so that everything that's being delivered is understood throughout the process.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And then when it goes on to set with something like that, we had 4 people, representatives that went over, and they were supplemented by the local team. So just kind of like those specialists that are representing our product. But then the local teams taking over.
And to be able to make like adjustments on site, right? Like I'm assuming that's very important because I don't know how many times, I mean, I don't work a lot of traveling jobs, but I remember so many times where you're like order something and it shows up and there's just something that needs to be tweaked almost like 50% half the time. So it's like, I feel like that's a huge thing to be able to do, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And to make paint touch-ups and adjustments.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Well, and again, you guys being all the way in New Zealand, I'm sure that's a huge challenge for you to be able to work on projects all over the world in that communication. It's such a huge part of the whole process of being able to, again, get the approval process. And I'm sure over the 30 years, as technology has improved, you've been able to improve that as well. But I can imagine that that's always had to have been like one of your biggest challenges, is to be able to communicate across the world without being there. Because I know for me, when I'm building props, it's all about getting your eyes on it in real time in 3D. So, I mean, I'm imagining as a property master must be pretty scary to be able to do this. So what are some of the things you do to facilitate that?
Yeah, I guess we're obviously trying to enable our props designers and team to get hands-on as soon as possible with pieces. There's nothing like actually picking up a mock-up of something or seeing the material samples that you're looking at. So the process would normally work through, depending how we start its artwork. As soon as we can, we'll be getting material samples, pieces of either it's the painted samples or the textures or a material palette sent over. At the same time, we've got a great media team, and we'll often do obviously tons of Zoom calls like this, and as much as possible at the start establishing what we're actually doing. We do a lot of complex mechanisms for things, something we love doing, and dividing what the thing looks like from how the thing works and kind of approaching it in 2 parallel streams of problem solving. So you can actually really early on define what you're building and as you say, so that the prop master can gain confidence in actually that it's going to work and it's going to look like this, and then we can kind of slowly bring everything together so that when you actually open the box at the end, you kind of get what you're expecting as something that meets all of your requirements.
Yeah, and I suppose also just having those dedicated people, like before this role, I mean, I've been at Workshop 17 years, and our production team that whole time I was head of production and a production manager, and part of that is that consistent communication and just really making sure that you're the person that is, the prop master or whoever the client may be, eyes and ears on the floor and is updating all the way through. And we're really clear about, what stages we're submitting things for approval. We'll incorporate the client in every step of the process.
Sure.
So there's a lot of collaboration with that. There's never a time where something's going to come into the door and then just turn up on set. It's an evolution throughout, whether we're engaged right from helping to do concept design through to delivery on set, or just receiving designs and taking them into design for manufacture and producing them. We don't mind which stage of the process we jump in on. We love to get involved at any level. We're not precious about that. But the one thing that we want to always make sure is that, whoever's receiving it is really happy with the product and has been involved the whole way through, so that they know where everything's at and it's being taken care of and it's what they expect to receive. So because it's the majority of the time that's our process that we're doing, we're very comfortable with that. But it is that barrier when we are in New Zealand that comes up a lot. I think we work with a lot of people again and again, like some of your PMG members like Brad Elliott and Guillaume Talouche and once we've kind of got a working process with them, we like to continue that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes a big difference. And I'm sure it's very intimidating for people to think, I'm going to go deal with a manufacturer all the way in New Zealand. But apparently it's been working for you very well because you've done a lot.
In the heart of it, though, too, I mean, obviously not in the past year. Recently, though, you hear about these heavy manufacturing jobs. And I mean, you hear about like places like SAT and stuff like that being like completely flooded out to where like the earliest they can get stuff out is like 2 months because of how we are in the heart of busyness.
Right.
So it's like when every shop in town is flooded out, like people are looking at outside shops like yourself, especially to be able to do that and still be able to make these turnaround dates. So I think that's the scariest part is the turnaround dates. So how are you guys like, how expensive does it get with the shipping and stuff like that when we have a date we need to press by?
I mean, it really depends on where it's being shipped to and how much is being shipped. If we're just sending some small scale props that we can throw in FedEx or we can get it there pretty quickly. And
overnight to get LA is totally doable with samples. So
nice.
literally
we'll send it like on our Monday and you'll get it on your Monday type of thing. And we also work with specialist shippers as well. There's a couple of companies in New Zealand that are really used to sending weird product all around the world. And can get it cleared pretty quickly, and have relationships with all of the kind of customs brokers that all of the main kind of shoots use over and over. So it hasn't really been much of an issue for us. We're sending swords and things that look like weapons and weird creatures and body parts around the world all the time. And it's they've got their process down, so we kind of rely on the shippers for that. But I mean, in situations like that, especially when all of the local shops might be super slammed, it's always good to kind of approach us. We kind of get tarred a little bit with the brush of when our sister company Wētā Effects might be super busy. Quite often internationally, it's not really known the difference between the Wētā companies. We are the practical kind of designer manufacturer, but there's also a very large scale VFX house next to us, sharing our name. For specific builds, especially prop builds where they don't have to necessarily go on people's bodies and things like that. We do have options around how we can put that through a pipeline much quicker, or we're also incredibly scalable as well. So, if it's a large scale armor and weapons project, for instance, quite often we're creating 4,500 to 5,000 weapons for a show, and creating shipping crates and things like that are everything can go into and be delivered onto set, and like those are the crates that are going to house it on set and with a racking system inside. So we're constantly thinking about the logistics of it as well.
Right.
If we we made a car for the movie Foe that we air freighted to Australia, for instance. It was full size. We worked with Patrice Vermette on that one, and it was a full scratch build electric vehicle that was the centerpiece of that kind of genre bending film. And from the outset, the whole premise of that was to make sure that the build would fit inside a container that could be air freighted. So, that's a lot of the design work that someone like Lance will do at the outset, that the design itself is actually considering how we're going to get it there in the fastest possible way.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the beginning, obviously, Wētā is known for high-profile, large format projects, but you mentioned that you do a lot of smaller projects as well. So for somebody like in the States who has a smaller project, even if it's like a television show or whatever, because of course now some of these television shows are as big as the features. Like with Fallout 2, that's happening. What's your process for, or how would you suggest people contact you for like a smaller project?
Yeah, well,
I guess one of the main things in bringing down costs is working out efficient ways to work so that right from the outset, when you start designing something, actually having some plan around how you're going to make that efficient for the whole manufacture process.
Right.
It's obviously super expensive when you have to do something completely bespoke, but if you can use something that exists, or if you can find some efficient way of modularizing pieces. I mean, this example of this rifle here was, this is for the creator, and this was an assault rifle which pulls apart. So you can turn a standard SMG base gun and you can put in a sniper rifle. It also has like an assault rifle part to it. So there was one mold set up for this, which then got used across multiple parts. So like, if you from the outset can design around that, you can save so much cost throughout the build, and obviously time and time efficiency.
Yeah, I think for smaller productions coming to us with quite limited budget. I mean, one of the things that we like to say is that we do both intimate and we do epic. So on the intimate side of it, that might be just we're creating one really key item for a show, like the faux example, or on something like the Spiderhead film, we just created a large scale console for that, or we might create one creature, or a puppet or something like that. And when they come to us, that could be at any stage of the project, but generally it's really useful to come in quite early on, when a script can be thrown at us and we can look at it and say, okay, well, if this is a key element that does require a specialty build, say a creature, we'll get our team involved in those early discussions to help advise on the most cost-efficient ways to approach that. And a lot of the time that might involve, talking about creating to the shot rather than actually building something that can do absolutely everything. So the design is very heavily informed by the final function and the performance that the director might need. So we always say that working from storyboards and a budget target is the best way to start designing in that space, because if we have an awareness of kind of the general budget that things are going to need to aim for, then we can help inform how you might be able to achieve these different shots using different elements right from the outset, and then going down a path of designing to shot. And that can be really, really crude on a project like the upcoming A24 Y2K project. We created some kind of creature robots for that, and we worked with Kyle and Evan, the filmmakers, on that, and their team, and they just did stick figures on post-it notes as their storyboards. And that was just enough to show the intent of what we need to achieve in the shot, and make sure that these reasonably crude but very cool builds were going to meet their expectations. And so we're not trying to provide like this premium product that is a full animatronic. We're delivering what the film requires, and making sure that that's going to meet whatever budgets are necessary, and forming our pipeline around that.
I mean, I guess 3D printing is something we've really started to leverage a lot of recently, especially on the smaller jobs, when you don't just set up a whole mold mass manufacture pipeline. You can keep a really small, specific, really focused team, and using 3D printing to actually mass manufacture the end components in the various rubbers, we've found that to be incredibly successful.
Yeah. So some of those manufacture decisions might be heavily led by the scale of project and the budget itself. And we've got lots of options around that. So rather than kind of going down a back and forth project process of quoting all of these different options, just having that conversation at the outset of like, when do you need it? How much do you need it made for? And what does it need to do? Like, just cuts to the chase. And then we can say, well, this is what we propose back to you. And we can try and make the absolute best thing we can build for that budget and that timeline.
Right. So if somebody wanted to contact you, the best way to do it is just through your website. What's the process of like getting something started or getting
there's
a quote?
Service inquiries kind of email link on our website, or I think we're on like IMDb, IMDb Pro and things like that as well. So our direct contacts are on there too.
Great. Yeah, that would be helpful for people because, again, I think a lot of people are intimidated when they hear Wētā. They think, that's it. It's got to be giant or it's not going to help me. But it'd be great, like Mikey said, when things are crazy busy, and also just to have the opportunity to have your expertise on something that's not a large-scale project too would be great. Do you guys do any rentals? Do you have any items that you rent?
We don't really.
Okay.
I think that's we're kind of more in the bespoke creations business, and then our clients and studios often keep the product. So we whilst our walls, if you ever come down and visit us, and the invitation is open, are absolutely covered in our masters. We don't really have a stock of higher product.
Right.
Yeah.
And if somebody wanted to make an inquiry where they needed you to do some either drawings or even a 3D modeling, you have a service that's just for that then, right? So if they wanted to take that, bring it to their producers or whatever, and then make a decision based on that, somebody could do just that. You could just do that aspect of it, correct?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a design studio here, which runs alongside our manufacture facility. And there's about 30 full-time concept artists in there working in 2D and 3D. And we also have the benefit of having our sculpting team and our 3D team. So when we need to take things into physical marketing, we've got hand sculpting as well as 3D modeling. So we can look at that process. We do a lot of work in the pitch phase as well. So it could be really early, like inspirational art. But having that in-house resource is really, really useful because it means that when we're engaged to design something that is then going to need to be built, we're involving people like Lands right from the outset. So those designs, even if we're not going to be manufacturing, but the end product needs to be built by someone, we'll involve our manufacturer art directors and project supervisors to ensure that the designs that are being produced are going to be able to be built from, which is the beauty of having it all under one roof.
Yeah, I guess from two perspectives, if it's got a mechanism or some kind of mechanical limitation, actually designing around that from the outset is so much more efficient. But then I've also found that there's a lot to be gained from actually having physical samples showing the materiality and the kind of material artistic qualities working through design. And that's something we've done a lot working through Avatar. And working with costume designer Deb Scott.
So kind of like a sampling process alongside of just straight 2D concept design that's really working back and forth and forming each other with textures. And we've had like a team working on Avatar for 8 years now, weaving and beading and carving. And it's so alongside of kind of more of like the hard surface finish, we've got a lot of handcraft artisans. So leather workers, textile artists, carving, beading, sculpting, all of those types of techniques, which help give, especially when we're creating culture through props and costume and things like that. It really gives that authenticity that we can then go and use some of our other techniques to replicate and mass produce.
Like just recently, we worked on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes with Wes Ball.
Okay.
And we knew one of the tribes was kind of based in this ruined tanker, the Marauder tribe, washed up on the beach. So we had the guys going out into the beaches collecting like interesting stuff that had washed up, bits of metal junk and old fishing ropes. And then we kind of brought them back and kind of started to work out how you'd actually knot them together to make a weapon or a bit of costume or a satchel or whatever it was. And then that got kind of incorporated into the design. So that's kind of a really interesting way to work, starting with the physical and then working back into the illustration.
Yeah, and a lot of that on both Avatar and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. There was elements that we were building, especially for like the RDA on Avatar for Brad, and there was a lot that was used in live action, but most of what we were producing was actually product that was scanned for VFX reference.
Right.
And the reason why they were doing that process was that it was getting that all of those textures and authenticity of that handmade item. It's invaluable to the VFX artist to have something that's a real tangible thing, to the extent that Lance even took this
there's certain things that work with James cameras. You want everything to be believable.
Sure.
You want to actually see that it moves like it moves when it's animated. And the spear gun here, this is a Mechaina spear gun from the Avatar: The Way of Water. And when we were working through this with Brad, we're trying to work out how a spear gun would actually work underwater. So we rented a swimming pool and we took a mock-up of this, and I do a lot of spearfishing in my spare time. So, we jumped in a pool with the spear gun, loaded it underwater and pretended to shoot some Avatar fish, and then went through the whole exercise and
videoed that as kind of
right.
reference for the VFX team as well. It's there's so many different ways that we can approach things. So many different techniques that we can use to just like deliver these briefs that it's really caused us to innovate in a really heavy way in our pipelines and our processes, for the benefit of the final product. So
we're working on a show like Avatar for 8 years. Do you ever hit do you ever hit a flow where it kind of starts to get boring, or is it always kind of crazy for that whole 8 years where new out of like things that you wouldn't have thought of, or it just keeps getting thrown at you?
I think we've gone through phases. Like there was a block where we were doing so much RDA work when we were working on things like the masks and weaponry, and the costume stuff has been an ongoing thing, but we've worked through different tribes through that. So it's always fresh just from the fact that we're constantly exploring something new, and someone will find a new material or some new way of doing something, and then suddenly there's a whole new world to explore based on using that new process. So we keep it interesting.
Yeah. And
it's always a new challenge.
Yeah. I think as well the creativity that can be spurred on something of that length, the collaboration that we've had with Brad and Deb has really meant that our artists have had such an ability to express their own techniques, and that is seen in the final product on the film, and so the creative reward that those artists have got has been incredible. A lot of the culture and character design was a really big back and forth process where a lot of the our individual artists, their own skill sets were really informing the look of characters and some of the elements of culture on that is just like nothing that you would ever have usually, and we feel incredibly blessed for that. But one of the things that our company owner Richard likes to say is that when Jim Cameron came to us on the first Avatar, we were engaged to help with some concept design around weapons, and this was very early on, and one of the things that Richard kind of worked with our team on, which was a big risk at the time as well, was not presenting in the first delivery solely weapons. In fact, the first thing that he delivered was eating implements, because the whole reasoning around that was that you can't design how this culture is going to fight without understanding their everyday life and, how they create their, utensils or eating implements in that process, and the whole ideation around that is an incredibly important element to it when you're creating a world.
Yes.
And it went down really well, and he actually did have them present like the weapon designs, but it's just that holistic approach of collaborating with whoever the client may be, whether it's a director or the props master or production designer, and helping, have our team be this hub of minds that can help throw out and brainstorm ideas that may be thinking outside the box of just delivering an item for, how it looks.
Yes.
It's really creating a world around that. And
and I think that makes a huge difference. Just like with a property master, if you're involved in telling a story and you have something invested in it, and if you're doing 8 years on a project, you're pretty invested at that point. So, and again, you do feel like you're part of a creative team, and that's, I think, what makes the difference between just manufacturing an item and actually creating something that is going to drive the story and help the character. And I think that's beautiful. I love that story with the eating utensils. That's brilliant. I love that, because that speaks to where you're coming from.
Yeah. And our team becomes, Brad and Deb's teams, like they're working directly for them, with them. We're not kind of just off on the side. We're really, our artists are working for them, creating their vision, and hopefully helping to enhance it and give them something that they hadn't really thought of before. Working side by side in that way, and in that kind of evolution of design spaces is a really cool one. I think one of the coolest projects that I feel I've worked on here was back on District 9, Neil Blomkamp's District 9, where kind of the design aesthetic for that, especially with the guns and the aliens and things like that, we were really fortunate to get to work with Neil in that space and help design that world for him. And even now, we get people approaching us with the weapon designs for that, saying, how iconic they are, and getting to create kind of iconic characters and weaponry design and things like that in that space.
That's the dream. It is.
Yeah.
The next
No doubt.
gun for the next million or whatever it is, iconic drop. You're just like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah. So we're all fans. I mean, even, in admin roles, it's really cool to be around such creativity and stuff that can have longevity as well. And so that's what we're always trying to bring our clients, whatever that brief is, and that's a big part of what you do, Lance. Yeah,
I think it's amazing when you actually get to know everyone around the workshop, like what everyone does with their spare time.
Right.
Like we've got our blacksmiths that go and fight with swords and armor for fun and do reenactment. And
yes.
One of our engineers builds jet engines, and we had this crazy, I don't know, quite a few years ago, he'd strapped it to his bicycle and had this jet engine. He was like riding up and down the street outside.
Yeah, and we were all outside with earplugs.
Everyone's just so into what they're doing.
Yeah.
And amazing leather workers, and it's just amazing what people actually do, and that they bring that passion to work.
Yes.
And we're so lucky to get to work on some of the things that we do. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, but I think, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, there's been a lot of innovation over 30 years, from when Wētā started to where we are now. What are some of the things that Wētā has innovated? In-house, I'm sure you've had to brainstorm and come up with new ideas and new concepts along with the things that the world has brought to you, like 3D modeling and stuff. But are there some things that, were Wētā creations in innovation in fabrication?
Yeah. And I guess on Lord of the Rings, everything was done by hand, right? The swords were all made by craftsmen by hand.
Yeah, we have a full-time in-house swordsmith still.
Yeah.
We've got 3 of them now.
Yes. And I guess when we got to The Hobbit, that's when things started to change. That's when like the first 3D printing technology was just appearing. We had this printer called the Eden, like some paradise garden. Then it was like the dream machine because you could just put anything into it and it made it. And the parts came out smelling like marzipan and they were super brittle. But it was amazing. And that was the first time that I think from a 3D modeling perspective, you could suddenly make something. Before that, someone would have to like look at, I don't know, we wouldn't even 3D model it, right? It would just be like created by hand.
Yeah, everything was kind of hand sculpted and handmade, model made, which we still do a lot of if the pipeline requires. But on the Hobbit itself, we had a 3D team, but it was quite small before that. And then on that project, when that project was originally going to be directed by Guillermo del Toro, and then it switched to Peter Jackson. And we were full steam ahead, but with a very short prep time. And of course, on Lord of the Rings, they had 2 years of prep. And then on The Hobbit, we had like 8 weeks or something like that. And so we immediately invested in our 3D team, and that expanded in a very big way because we had to make things at 3 different scales, everything. Like,
and there was a lot of aluminium thoughts to be
yeah.
Suddenly CNC machines has become the most essential component for that. There just wasn't a way to make them by hand at the scales. So that's when I guess our CNC department really took off.
Yeah.
One of our engineers custom built several machines specifically just for making swords really accurately and really quickly.
Yeah.
And then I guess it came the 3D printing, although it started off kind of brittle and slow, it's really kind of evolved to the point now that we're feeling comfortable printing some parts and sending them straight to set. But the range of materials that we're using, it's incredible seeing in our 3D modeling department. The head of the department, Petri, his desk is the most exciting place in the workshop for me because he's always got the latest 3D print samples. And this is a titanium printed sword handle that was made for Amazon's Rings of Power. And it was a really thin lattice tree design. We couldn't work out how to machine this, so we printed it in titanium. The technology made for printing bits of satellites, and it was amazing until we came to try and polish it. And it's so hard that you can't polish it with any conventional tool. So hence this one here is unpolished. But it worked beautifully for the one that we did finally manage to polish. But between printing metals, we even got to the point where we're starting to be able to print silicons for prosthetics.
Oh.
We started printing eyeballs for some of our huge figurines.
Is there anything Wētā can't do? I mean, seriously. I mean, do you farm anything out?
Cool stuff.
Well, we honestly always kind of say like a lot of what we're working on is prototypes. Like every new brief that comes to us is a new challenge. So. We whilst we have our pipelines and our very tried and true pipelines, a lot of the time, we are needing to innovate on each brief. We've definitely, I mean, with our 3D printed eyeballs, that's we actually got an artist out of one of our local universities, Massey University, and kind of had her tasked with helping to crack 3D printing eyeballs that have intrinsic color all the way through, so you have all of the detail and 3D internal detail all in color. So we've kind of become a bit known now for our very large-scale, hyper-realistic figures that we do in the immersive experience and exhibition space. And one of the key things about that is the realism and getting away from that uncanny valley. And so those eyeballs was a big factor for that. as well as doing things like with the eyelashes when we're scaling up figures. All of the products that we use in that space need to be scaled up in a really realistic way. So our hair department created a machine specifically to taper the eyelash fibers so that when you look at it, it doesn't feel off. Everything is considered, right down to all of the peach fuzz on the face. So yeah, if we need a final outcome, we'll generally try and figure out how we can build the thing to make it.
Yeah. And I guess, as I was saying at the start, every job is kind of unique, and depending on what the unique needs are, for that build, we can look at different materials and work through what the options might be with 3D printing and machining and the options we have here.
Yeah, and as Lance hinted at before, as well as kind of moving into 3D printing in our prosthetics pipeline, that has been something that our large scale figure work, we started kind of doing R&D in that space, and then kind of taking that into the prosthetic space. On a project like Rings of Power, we were 3D printing the actual molds for kind of creature masks and actual prosthetic appliances, because cutting down the time of remaking molds when you're producing thousands of items for a large series like that really cuts down our overall timelines. So every mold has a lifespan, and if we can reprint it rather than have to go through, creating the molds from scratch in a manual way, then that can only help. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the way having multiple different areas is really interesting, in that you discover something making one build, whether or not it's a giant figure, and then suddenly that's relevant for making a prop build. And it's amazing how the things that you learn kind of spread, and you find efficiencies across the whole business. So I think there's a lot to be gained by having so much kind of going on at the same time, and having all of us kind of jumping around a lot, working on different.
Yeah. How many projects?
Yeah.
How many projects do you guys have in house at any given time?
Ooh. It depends on the scale of the projects, but I think in the span of a year, sometimes it's like 7 large projects and a whole lot of smaller projects. So kind of like up to working on about 50 a year sometimes.
Right.
But sometimes it's lighter. It really just depends on the year and the project itself. Yeah. But I mean, we do so many different disciplines because of a lot to do with our remoteness as well. We were just talking before the call about the number 8 wire mentality in New Zealand, which a lot of our artists have. So the example of 3D printing molds is, we've got mold makers that we're training up in 3D, and they're the people, it's mold makers that are actually creating the 3D molds, as well as other artists that are multidisciplined and will jump between projects. So
yeah. And I guess that's been a kind of part of Wētā's culture from the start. Kind of being isolated means you sometimes have to just find solutions for things and tinker and see what happens when you mix a bit of part A with part B. And even now, just speaking of that, with our resin printers, the guys now are, although we're buying some of the best printers you can get, the guys are wondering, like, what happens when you combine resins? Do we get like something in between, or can we add pigment and color to this? And you're kind of constantly exploring to try and find new ways of using what you've got.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we ideally would love to have like a good spread of project types, but what tends to happen oddly is that all of a sudden we'll just have all the creature projects come at once, or all of a sudden it's costume, and then all of a sudden it's weapons. And so we need artists that will be able to do, work in any department a lot of the time. We do have specialists as well, but a lot of our crew will go between, one of our team members, she's a trained welder, but also hair puncher, prosthetic painter. goes on set for us. So she's building cars and also hair punching intricate prosthetics and painting them. And so those are the types of people that we have under our roof. And because they're so multidisciplined, it means that we can really support people for careers here for long periods of time.
Right. Do you have an apprenticeship program for people to start out with you?
We don't have like a specific apprenticeship program other than we have a lot of people that join and just kind of muck in and go from department to department and kind of learn the job. I think Lance and I have worked together for many years, and we both kind of started in the same way of kind of just being.
And we're always looking for passionate people that just really want to make cool stuff.
Yeah.
Come and show your passion and.
And do you have teams of people that live remotely in other parts of the world that work for Wētā, but you put them on projects in wherever they are?
Yeah, especially from our on-set teams. Quite often, people that are very, very used to working with Wētā product, they may have come in and done stints working for us in-house, but they are international, and we put them up to be hired directly by the productions, but they know our product, they know our people, and we trust them to really represent us well. So that's also the other side of it, that we've got a good network around the world where we'll put them forward to represent.
Well, so can you guys talk a little bit about your immersive exhibits? I think that's fascinating.
Oh yeah, I was looking at that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's the one with the giant people I was looking at. So I was like, what is this?
Yeah, right? I mean, it all kind of started back on it was the centenary of a very important conflict for us, called Gallipoli. And it's called The Scale of Our War, and it's at our National Museum, Te Papa. And we worked with Te Papa to design an experience that was going to tell the story of our soldiers in a way that wasn't just like any old, stuffy war museum.
Sure.
And really make it very, very personal. So part of what Richard had kind of led from a design perspective of that and conceiving the concept of that was taking excerpts from real soldiers and a nurse in this instance, diary entries, and kind of replicating those scenes from the diary entries in 2.4 scale, and then making it a really intimate experience where they're in bell jars. So you come into a space and there is with the sound design in the space and the lighting design, and then these hyper-realistic characters centrally. It's giving people a very intimate experience, whilst it's a very incredible artistic piece that they're looking at the same time. But it created that connection with the real human, rather than it just being an exhibition around numbers of deaths and things like that. So that's kind of where that side of our business started forming in a big way. We'd always kind of done private commissions for sculptures and public artworks and things like that. Big golem at our airport and things like that. That was creating a whole experience for a visitor to kind of come through. And so we now have a division that is dedicated to that world, and they will design experiences and then project manage those experiences to be built. And our manufacture services and design services are vendors to them. So they'll also engage composers and lighting designers and things like that, and help kind of execute those experiences end to end. And that's anything from kind of exhibitions, artistic exhibitions that are educational. Like we've got a bug lab exhibition
Nice.
that's traveling the world, which is basically for children, and it's kind of a fantasy experience, but it's based on real bugs and taking their unique abilities and presenting them kind of like their superpowers, I suppose.
Nice.
So that's kind of like a really cool thing. And there's lots of interactive things with that, right through to we just won a Thea Award for an experience that we designed in China, which is one of the world's largest duty-free shopping mall experiences. And it's a really beautiful space where it's called the Forest at the Edge of the World. Forest at the Edge of the Sky, sorry. And,
Nice.
and so we designed that space and then kind of art directed it, but kind of got a lot of the local vendors to execute that. So we're doing that type of thing. And then we also have our animatronics and robotics pipeline too, which is kind of going into theme parks. And we've got an animatronic at Europa Park. And that is really exciting for us because a lot of that work helps with the R&D for our film animatronics, where, you know, there's long lead times on that type of work, where we can really advance our skill sets in that space and then, you know, help apply those to our film pipelines. Yeah.
Do you have any of those installations in any U.S. theme parks?
I don't think so, no, although we would love to. That would be, we are
So would we.
expanding into that space. More and more. Yeah,
the gun mechs is something really interesting coming out of that particular team. I'm looking at more of the advanced programming and animatronics work. Right back on the Avatar world, we started making electro gun mechs, which used a battery drill to create a fake.
Wow, nice.
To achieve record, and this literally moves a weight using a battery and a large off-center cog to throw a large weight back and forwards. And I guess this was made in Avatar.
Yeah.
15 plus years ago.
So you saying that kickback was not acting right there? That's something that's actually happening.
I mean, and this is old technology now. And what's been really exciting is that with this particular one, you had to design the gun around the mech. And so this gun also has muzzle flash at the front, and you can adjust it from burst. You can change the rate of fire and everything down here. It had shell ejection, so it ejected brass at the back. And
so it did eject shells?
Yeah, these ones were designed to.
That's
nothing
brilliant.
loaded than this mock-up gun we have. But what's really exciting about this, or where we've got to now, is that this was all mechanical and had lots of moving parts. Now, using linear motor, the kind of technology that powers like a levitating bullet train using magnets, there's one moving part and it moves a weight back and forwards, and you can program the full acceleration and deceleration cycles. And it means that you don't have to design necessarily the whole gun around having this big flat area for this reciprocating mech to be. You can now fit it into much slimmer guns, things like SMGs and smaller rifles.
Right.
And so you can achieve this really realistic and heavy kickback. And the first linear motor we bought was way too powerful. It was like a shotgun. We had to dial it way down. But it's obviously there's one moving part, and you're just powering it with electricity, and you can kind of get the kick and the muzzle flash. And we've recently done a rifle that had a glowing barrel. And we cast the barrel clear so that as you were firing a certain number of rounds, the whole barrel would start to glow from the heat.
Had and kind of interactive smoke coming out and things like that, because it was a sci-fi weapon where it had a lot of performance requirements around it. But obviously that type of thing is a safe object, and it can be looked after by the props master.
Right.
You know, where we can do different things with the lighting for, you know, VFX enhancement. And I mean, it's a technology that we've been doing ever since the first Avatar, but we've primarily used it in sci-fi weapons. We on Elysium we were doing recoil mechanisms and particle particle ejection and shell ejection and muzzle flash and ammo counters and things like that are all incorporated in it. So a lot of the concept design was based around designing to making sure that the proportions of the weapon would fit the mechanism from the outset. So we weren't redesigning once we got into the manufacture pipeline, which was super, super useful. And, you know, that director on that project, his Neil's passion is cool sci-fi design, and so a lot of the feedback that we would get was like, yes, fucking cool guns, and that just left it at that. But you know, we're now using this technology more and more, and especially as there is a focus on safety as well, and having props teams be able to look after product as well. We are seeing more people wanting to kind of engage in this type of technology.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the way we're heading.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So if you could get ahead of that, that would be great. Like if, you know, just everyday guns like Glocks and Berettas or whatever, or just a normal handgun, to be able to create it so it can shoot, have light and slide and eject.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge market for that.
Yeah, just for exact replicas. I think
yes,
that's like
exactly.
I'm surprised nobody's thought of that yet, actually.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for years. I don't have the technology. Yeah. They're called real guns. Get it?
Yeah.
REEL. Real guns. Okay.
Genius. Yeah. Coin it right now.
You could have it. So talk about Mad Max and Fury Road. I know you worked on that, Danielle, right?
Yeah, well, we primarily did design, and we were working with Colin, the production designer, Colin Gibson, and designed a lot of their vehicles. We didn't actually build them, but we did a lot of kind of development of character and vehicle design and things like that early on. So that was a pretty cool project. We had actually, we'd worked with George briefly when we were going to be doing, which never ended up going ahead, the George Miller's Justice League, which was actually kind of put off during the strikes of 2008. And so that was really cool to then actually go on to Fury Road and have that be a complete raging success. So yeah, that was a nice one.
Nice. What was I going to ask you? So do you guys have personal favorite projects that you've done?
You go first.
I think one of the coolest and most challenging things I've worked on that I found most rewarding was we made a working scuba mask for Avatar.
Okay.
At the time, we'd be making a lot of masks for use in the dry. On Pandora, everyone wears a mask, so we made hundreds of masks for use on film. But with the movie kind of shifting to being underwater, Deb Scott and the dive master, John Galvin, came to us and said, "Can you make us a working scuba mask?"
Wow.
To which we said,
"Sure."
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, can we do that?
Yeah, as you can imagine, when
the safety implications.
That's terrifying.
So we started looking at what it would actually take to make that, and John Galvin had previously worked with an industrial design company in Sydney, making a submarine for James Cameron. So he had a great contact there with someone that could work out the technical side of it. So we did the concept design for a dive mask. It was designed around a custom regulator, which design industry worked up for us, and then we worked up all the conceptual design for it and made some prototype masks that actually got dough and worked beautifully. It actually got certified. I think the Australian Navy did some official certification, and then just last year won an Australian Good Design Award for best in class as a
beautiful
product. That was really cool to actually be able to take what's effectively a film prop right through to a kind of product level of resolution. And
did you have to do non-reflective lenses for them as well? Because I see the reflection.
This particular one isn't a dive version, so all the can
Nice.
pop out. So
Okay,
anytime you don't need
beautiful.
a lens, you can
Yeah.
just pop it out. This was an acrylic one, which we use for more optical clarity. We also had polycarb versions for stunt use that you could just drop in whenever
Brilliant.
you needed. Um, yeah, so that's probably my favorite project.
Danielle.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think still just because it was one of my first projects at Workshop, District 9,
Mm-hmm.
just because it was a breakout success, and it also because we have so many different pipelines, that was a project that I really started learning all of our pipelines on in a very big way, kind of getting thrust into, from design through delivery across, vehicles that are going on set and flipping with stunt use to weapons and costume props and costume and creatures and prosthetics and absolutely every part of that film had some kind of specialty element to it. So, going through the script and breaking out all of the different specialty elements and delivering all of these different pipelines and then having it be such a cool film. I think that has stuck with me as something that was a really great kind of training ground, I
Sure.
suppose, for working in kind of heavy genre and kind of moving forward. But beyond that, I think some of the other projects that we've got to even just have like a little touch of, have been really cool because of the people that we've got to work with. We just sent a crew out to Comic-Con because we made the face huggers for Alien Romulus
Oh,
and
nice.
working with Wētā on that, on such an iconic property was really, really cool. So you constantly have these little things where like we might just have one kind of scope of involvement, but it's really, really awesome to be part of that and to get to be part of that. And we've seen a resurgence recently of a lot of people really wanting to go back to that practical, physical creation.
Sure.
And having a filmmaker like Wētā, where that was such a priority for him. He had us and you know Alex Gillies and Legacy Effects all involved in that project, where everything that the actors are interacting with is physical, and you really can't get away from how cool that is when they're actually interacting with real things.
And these things are terrifying. So there's like probably hardly any acting involved, but it's like jumping at you.
I know. And we every year here we have an end of year show reel that our media team put together, because we've got so many different projects going on all around the workshop. We've also got a gaming division, and they have absolutely no idea. We're developing our own game.
Nice.
Called Tales of the Shire.
Nice.
And so we never really get to see in detail what all of the different departments are working on. And so we have a show reel at the end of the year, and where they kind of show the best of what we've worked on across the year. And everyone always gets really emotional because we watch it in the cinema that's attached to our facility, and it is a really incredible thing. But part of that was everyone from our crew being attacked by facehuggers and all of our proof of concept videos is like the most hilarious kind of visuals you could imagine of
I think we've all been roped into various tests and costume fittings and things over the years.
Yeah, well, I've been really lucky. I have dodged it. But yeah, that's the thing, because we're part of our pipeline being remote, especially for costume creation and creatures. We try to limit the amount of actual fittings that we need with with any actor. And so we work basically the majority of our process is working from scans of the actors and then using in-house doubles. So everyone, when you join workshop, you get measured up, and you may be the person that steps in. And
Right.
Lance led the build on the Thor we worked on Thor: Love and Thunder. We worked with Myers Rubio on creating that the Thor's costumes, and that was during COVID, so that we couldn't actually leave our country. So that was like the ultimate test of that remote pipeline, where we shipped our final suits for literally the number one character.
Right.
Instead of fitting packing the box.
And our team zoomed in. But we were working off body scans, and he was bulking up during the process. But we obviously didn't have anyone in house that was going to ever meet those proportions. So we had a guy from our engineering department who was the right height, and we built a muscle suit
Nice.
to meet the measurements. So yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
we've got a lot of good behind the scenes content.
I would imagine you guys, do you have a gallery there at Wētā? And is it open to the public?
Tourism.
Is it open to the
Yeah,
public?
we've got a little tourism experience behind the scenes. It is more kind of around the creation of how we kind of work on films, rather than it being kind of a museum of product.
I see.
And then we also have another tourism experience that we designed and have installed up in Auckland, which is it's called Wētā Workshop Unleashed, which is basically a fantasy version of Wētā Workshop, which people might kind of think of if they think about us, rather than being a very practical workshop. The receptionist there is an animatronic called Jeff, who greets everyone with dad jokes, and you go through. It's a full immersive experience.
Well, and he's in war.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing how much you guys are expanding. I mean, it's fantastic.
I have a question of just going back. I know we've gone through like 3D modeling and AI, but I want to ask what you guys do. Like, how much of what you do is still from found objects? Just because, like, when you think of like the beginnings, like of Star Wars and stuff like that, half the stuff, props and stuff you see in that is literally found objects. Like the lightsabers were all pieced together. Like almost the whole sets were pieced together. Do you guys still do a lot of that?
At times we'll use found objects. One of the problems we have, and I guess being so isolated in New Zealand, is you find one great object and then you need 3 of those objects. And cannot find 3 more. So often now we'll end up, either we copy it or we just start from scratch and build off. So we have digital assets that we'll reuse. But there's less kind of kit bashing, I guess, now. It's generally more custom bespoke builds and things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably use more of that in our miniatures pipeline. So, we do, our miniatures pipeline's heavily hand model made, where we did a children's TV series with Richard's children's production TV company, Pukiko Pictures. And, we were doing, all of the sets were miniature environments. And then there was digital characters. And so, that's low budget children's TV. So those miniatures, absolutely everything about that pipeline was trying to utilize traditional methods of taking source objects and making them look like completely different things. And, as well as using, 3D printing and rapid prototyping, things like that, and trying to, incorporate them all together. But on a project like The Creator, for instance, we worked with Gareth on that project. As Lance said earlier, a lot of the design decisions, we were also working with James Klein, the production designer, on the prop side of things. He really led that space. And we delivered for them all of kind of the hero weapons and props that had that level of bespoke, but we were also helping to design, and then they got the local props team to deliver design that was based around found source objects. So that was the type of project where it's a big sci-fi film, but we were using different pipelines. But the whole concept of that was to try and have elements that could be reused in a really smart way.
Right.
Where we've got a small kit that can be supported by a very small team. We had 2 of our crew on there were looking after especially costume and kind of the hero elements that we had delivered. And, being able to switch things in and out, change their configurations. We did that across both weapons and costuming, where you would design product so that, we're creating a kit set of parts that can be configured in different ways and really easily switched out between shots, so that, it's a really tight, efficient amount of product that we're delivering. So that was like a bit of a combination. We did do some hero props that were clad over existing product too, but that generally they were kind of incorporated with 3D prints.
Well, so you're doing gaming, you said, no, right? Creating game. Does Wētā have any ambition in filmmaking and creating films of your own? I mean, you do it all as it is. I mean, all you have to do is cast some actors and you're ready to go, right? I mean, if you're writing games and creating games, you guys must be. Is there any ambition? It's been talked about.
We just can't agree on a genre.
Never say never. I think it's we certainly would have aspirations in that area. It's just we haven't gone down that path yet. It was kind of a natural thing. The game development side of it. We also kind of service the game industry from a concept art perspective as well. And we also help people really early on in our design department with pitching, and so helping package things up for sale and helping visualize their treatments and things like that. So it's definitely in that space of developing content and IP and supporting our artists in that. Maybe, you never know.
That's right. Seems inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even get over how impressive your organization is. I never had any idea that it was extensive as it is. So, I mean, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to say? What's that?
We'd love to show you guys around.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Trust me, it's on the list of places to visit. I've been to Australia, but New Zealand is definitely pretty close to that list.
Yeah, well, New Zealand is just a very handy overnight flight from LA. So
yeah, that's right.
It's true.
So, what else, Mikey? Is there anything else that we've missed? I mean,
no, I'm educated.
Seriously educated. Absolutely. Well, I hope that we see some immersive experiences that you guys are creating here in the States at some point. I would love to see that because that's amazing. Are you familiar with Meow Wolf?
Meow Wolf.
It's an immersive. It
sounds familiar.
Yeah, you look it up. It's an immersive experience that they've done one. It started in Santa Fe, and they've done one in Vegas, 2 in Texas, and now they're going to do one in Los Angeles.
It's like an immersive experience, but on acid.
Yeah, completely
essentially
on acid. But the great thing about that is that whatever city they're in, they use all local artists to create it. So, but it's pretty fascinating. If you get a chance to ever come to the States and see it, you should for sure.
Yeah, cool. I'm sure our immersive team are aware.
Yes, oh yeah, I'm sure they are. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you both for doing this, taking the time to do this. We're really excited to be working with you in every way.
Yeah. Thanks for all the work that you've done with the PMG and supporting us. You guys have come out with flying colors, and we really appreciate it.
No, thank you. We've really enjoyed the opportunity to chat with you, and we'll see you at the awards.
Oh, you're coming. Nice.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's fantastic.
Or for timely purposes, you came.
You came.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah,
in
it was
person.
such a great award. Congratulations to all the winners. It really was a night to remember.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but yeah, it's the awards was great, and it's excited to do. Awesome for next year. So
Exactly. So again, thank you guys both for doing this.
yeah. All right. I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's.
really awesome to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Me too. Mikey's going to take us out.
Yeah, let's take us out. We talked about you guys came out to San Diego Comic-Con, but we are going to have a presence in, I guess, at this point, only a couple weeks at LA Comic-Con at the LA Convention Center. It's going to take place October 4th through the 6th. And actually, our wonderful Chris Call right here is going to be on a panel there that's highlighting some of the best prop masters in the industry. That's going to just talk about part of being a prop master and what it takes to be a prop master and everything like that. So I think that's fantastic. You guys should all come out with that. We will have. I'll probably add it to this episode at some point. We're going to figure out a time and a date specifically for that. There's also going to be other panels going on throughout the weekend, but we're going to have a pretty awesome booth that's going to highlight a whole bunch of different prop masters. We're going to be displaying some pretty amazing props. So make sure you come and check us out. We'll be around all weekend to answer any questions that's going to be happening. So yeah, LA Convention Center, October 4th through the 6th. Come and say hey. Aside from that, I think that's it. So, yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Prop Talk, the official podcast of the Property Masters Guild, brought to you by real working, retired, and associate prop master or props people. I guess
correct.
And associates.
Props allies.
Props allies. Yes. If this is your first time listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment wherever you're hearing it or viewing it, because we're on YouTube now, so make sure to check us out on YouTube. If you'd like to know more information on the Property Masters Guild or have any questions for us here at Prop Talk, go ahead over to propertymastersguild.org. Check us out on Instagram at _the PMG and all other socials. Make sure you check out Wētā Workshop too. They're at wētāworkshop.com. You'll be able to browse everything that they're about. So
yes, it's fascinating.
It is. It's a pretty cool website. So yeah,
Absolutely.
check that out. Until next time.
Thank you guys.